How are we, folks? Dave Brown here with the New Populist. Thank you for joining me on this Monday. Of course, over the weekend, the United States bombed 3 nuclear sites in Iran. And how successful was it? Who knows? We have our claims. We say we knocked out a lot of their potential. And Iran says that, nah, we moved things around and our nuclear program is still viable and can be quickly repaired. The truth? Honestly, who knows? But in response to this attack, a lot of people are freaking out, saying that we are spiraling toward World War III and an escalation that will be worse than Iraq and Afghanistan. But, in my last video, I said this: you have to calm down. You can't overreact, and you have to let things play out, especially with Donald Trump. And when you do overreact, you're going to say a lot of things that in hindsight will make you look kind of ridiculous. And in my opinion, Dave Smith, who I do like a lot, was saying that Trump was now worse than George Bush. And in my opinion, that is absolutely ridiculous. And again, Iraq, Afghanistan, 2 land invasions and occupations. Trump has just bombed 3 facilities. Now, not saying I agree with it. I'm saying the comparison is ridiculous as of now. And going back to 2020, one thing I always say is that we have to be realistic with what Trump is going to do and what he is capable of, because the system, the U.S. system, is so big, so powerful, and there's so many competing interests that when you're the U.S. president, oftentimes you can't do what you want to do, and you're in some way just pulled by the currents. And so with this attack, a lot of people in Trump land are very disappointed, screaming betrayal. Where I go, Trump is going to do things that I do not like. I've said that for years. And when it happens, I'll be disappointed, but I'm not going to pour gasoline on myself and set myself on fire. That does no good. You have to calm down and take a step back and not lose your mind when things don't go your way. So that's what I don't do on this channel. And I try to be realistic and fair to whoever's president, saying you have to deal with a lot of different things that we don't even see or know about. And you're making very, very difficult decisions. And when it comes to this Iran situation, in my opinion, I think Trump is trying to thread the needle where he appeases the neocons by attacking Iran, but he doesn't go so far as, say, invading by land where things could spiral out of control. So he's trying to walk this narrow path, and the danger in doing that is both sides end up being angry at you, and it's actually worse off. However, that doesn't mean that walking that narrow path won't work, because again, this situation is not like Iraq. It isn't. There's no land invasion yet, and I don't think there will be. Nor is it World War II, where the neocons say everything is about Hitler and Iran's the new Hitler. It's not that either. So he's trying to walk the tightrope there, and so far, the early indications is that he might just get away with that. And why do I say that? Well, Iran has finally has had a response to this attack, and they fired several missiles at our U.S. base in Qatar. However, they let us know first. So we have an article from the Times of Israel. This story, of course, is everywhere. I just picked Times of Israel. And it says that Iran said to notify Qatar ahead of strike on U.S. airbase. Iran coordinated its attack on the U.S. airbase in Qatar with Qatari officials. According to the New York Times, Tehran gave advance notice that attacks were coming to minimize casualties, reports the paper, citing 3 Iranian officials with knowledge of the plans. So did Trump notify Iran when he bombed the facilities? Nope. And in fact, a couple of days earlier, he was talking about let's have peace talks, let's not escalate, U.S. is not involved. And then all of a sudden, in the middle of the night, B-2s dropped the bombs and hit their facilities. But in response, the Iranians notified Qatar that they were going to attack. And as they said, they wanted to minimize casualties, or in other words, they did not want to kill U.S. personnel in that base, because that would be a major escalation. And clearly, in my opinion, the Iranians are signaling they don't want that smoke. So they want to do something, because they have their domestic population who is, upset and wants them to respond, but they don't actually want to go head to head with the United States. So they do this attack. They call first, and of course, the officials in Qatar, they let us know. Everybody bunkers down and gets out the way. The missiles are fired. I think most of them are intercepted, and what does hit doesn't actually hurt anybody. So I think this is a clear signal that they don't want an escalation, and their response is just a token response. It has no real teeth. And if this holds, and it may not, again, you can't get too far ahead of yourself, but this, if this holds, maybe Trump can thread the needle where he drops the bombs, destroys their facilities, and then Iran has this return fire, which does nothing, and then things calm down and peter out, and then say 3 months from now, this is completely forgotten. This could be what is happening. And the U.S. did the same thing in Syria. Remember when Trump launched those tomahawks into Syria, and a lot of MAGA was freaking out again, going, oh my God, Trump is starting a war in Syria and getting involved. And all he did was launch a few missiles. He called the Russians beforehand saying, hey, Russia, we're going to launch these missiles, move your personnel so no one gets hurt. And then we basically put 3 big holes in a runway and then pounded our chest that, hey, we responded to Bashar al-Assad and showed him that he will not get away with his chemical attacks. It was all a show, just to posture. And I think this is what Iran is doing right now. But again, things can change. Can't get ahead of ourselves. But so far, the indications are the people who were freaking out on Friday, dousing themselves in gasoline, setting themselves on fire, they may have overreacted. And they'll be smart in the future to heed my warning and let things play out before you go on X, on Facebook, and spell complete doom and say that the world is ending. It does not seem to be the case so far. That's the caveat. Well, that is it for now. If you're new to my channel, like and subscribe, and I'll see you next time.